Hello guys. A long time ago in Britain there was a politician called David Milliband. I say a long time ago, it was approximately I think 2006, okay? And basically he became the very first government cabinet minister ever to have his own blog. He wanted to write directly to the public and say what he thought. Now, God, stupid. So I don't know. I can't get rid of stupid adverts. Okay, right. Now, unlike most blogs at the time, his blog was actually created on a government website on government servers and run by civil servants. He did not use a private company's blogging platform. At the time, there were blogging platforms such as Blogger and JournalSpace, which were the two most popular blogging sites. Both of them, I believe, were American companies that ran them. JournalSpace was later destroyed when a fired employee decided to take his revenge. At the time he worked as a computer specialist, he went back into the computer office and deleted everybody's blogs and all the backups of those blogs. Because the backups and all the blogs had themselves been destroyed, as well as all the source code, everything. Basically, the company could no longer function and went bankrupt. And that was the end of JournalSpace. If only they hadn't fired him, then JournalSpace would still have survived. I do not know what they fired him for. I can't remember. But anyway, that's not relevant. David Milliband, and yes, for those young people, if there aren't any younger British members reading this, I do mean David, not Ed Milliband. I do mean David. Okay, right. For those who don't understand my last comment, David Milliband, after losing an election, after the Labour Party lost an election in 2010, David Milliband went over to America, and Ed Milliband, his brother, became the more famous politician. But before then, David was the famous politician who went on to become the Foreign Secretary, who was responsible for things like whether we should drop a bomb on, I don't know, Iran or Afghanistan or not. Okay? Things like that, okay? You know, foreign policy, basically. Anyway, and that's my case. So now, here is an article where it talks about him blogging. And it confirms, it said, the First Minister of blogging, and he was in fact it does say here, David Milliband has prompted heated debate by becoming the first government minister to launch his own blog. It is hosted at the time by the office of the Deputy Prime Minister, where Milliband is Communities and Local Government Minister. He later went on to become Foreign Secretary. Okay? And he said Milliband says the aim of the blog is to help bridge the gap, the growing and potential dangerous gap between politicians and the public. And it said, because it is being run as part of an official government site, Milliband said it would focus on its ministerial duties and not lapse into party ranting or linked to other party political sides. Some people weren't happy, however. Some people thought it was a downright waste of money. You can see here, but I will discuss that in a minute, okay? Some people, for example, claimed that it was costing about £40,000 a year. According to research by the Liberal Democrats, that was a rival political party to his at the time. Well, it still is. Sorry, I didn't mean at the time, sorry, it still is. According to research by the Liberal Democrats' urban frontbencher, Chris Hume, the amount is somewhere approaching £40,000 a year. Now, later on, they claimed that it actually cost £40,000. It may have cost £40,000 a year in the first year, but then the cost would have been reduced. At the time, here, of taxpayers' money, for staff to capture David Milliband's hot air. Hot air means, you know, angry comments or something like that, or just annoying comments, or comments where he expresses his frustration on climate change, he says. Now, some people felt that it was a downright waste of money, and people felt that he should just use a normal blogging service for free, like Journal Space or Blogger. At the time, I think one of the reasons might have been that he could say whatever he liked on a government website, and he could not be sanctioned by private companies for doing so, because it would all be hosted on an official government website, okay? Run by the government for the people. Okay? Communism, if you like. Okay? Now, here, it actually shows you some of David Milliband's posts. This is an archived version of the blog, which is now on the Wayback Machine. Okay, so it's web archive, which for those of you who know this, know it as the Wayback Machine. But this is how it was. He eventually signed off when he stopped becoming a government minister, okay? When basically the government lost the election, pretty much. Okay? Or something like that, I believe. I can't remember if they'd lost at this point, but nonetheless, he signed off, okay, when he ceased to be, and he basically left. I can't remember the full details, but, you know. Now, you can see, for example, him talking about Somalia. I do not know the political issues of the time. I'm not saying I'm for or against what he said. I'm just saying the sort of things he put down. And he said, I don't underestimate the difficulties or the complexities, but the growth of opposition to extremism in Somalia is encouraging. And it mentions some name I can't pronounce. Interpretation of Islam is alien to Somalis, who traditionally practice a moderate Sufi-led form of religion. The intervention from international renowned Islamic scholars supports isolation of the extremists who work to their own agenda and against the interests and traditions of Somalia and its people. And here he mentions Iran, and he says, one of the problems and this was again in 2010, one of the problems we face in dealing with Iran is the constant confusion about who is wielding power. This has implications for our policy on the country's nuclear program. I wrote about this in the International Herald Tribune last weekend. Okay, so it allowed him to express whatever controversial views he wanted to express without worrying about private companies shutting him down. Okay, at the time he was seen as wasting money when there were free services available, and why wouldn't you use a free service? Because it would save the government money. However, it seems in hindsight he was way ahead of his time. He could perhaps foresee problems that mere mortals like me and others couldn't see back then. Back in the past, we naively believed that America truly valued freedom of speech. And we truly believed it. Okay? What we didn't expect was American companies to start censoring people like Donald Trump. But more on that in a moment. I've just realised I forgot to mention something else, which is going back to the £40,000 a year figure. I thought I'd done it. Now, I'll be honest, this is from a dodgy site called Puffbox. I've never heard of them, so what's on this could be wrong. I've never heard of Puffbox, but I'm just taking them at their word for now, okay? Because it seems like they're quoting things, okay? And it says, where did Chris Hume get the figure of £40,000 for the annual cost of David Milliband's blog? And it said it had something to do with it was talking about how 2 members of staff had integrated it into another blog and continued to oversee it. They claimed that they were basically senior managers, and they claimed that a lot of the managers were overseeing this work, and 34% to 40% of their time was spent doing this. But they said this is expected to decrease. So in other words, there were a lot of initial setup costs, but then it would get much less. They said a grade 7 is probably 40 to... in the civil service, people are paid on different pay grades, okay? When I was in the civil service, I was graded SO, but grade 7 is a much more senior management level. And they said it probably 40 to 45k a year. And an AGO salary was about 25k. This was at the time. That's K means £1,000. And they said, and so basically, but Ed Milliband himself commented on this, and he said, we are trying to bed down the ongoing administrative costs as we speak, but we know they are going to be less than 10% of an existing junior civil servant's time. Even applying the add 50% for overheads rule, you're talking £3,750 a year. So what basically David Milliband was saying was there was still a lot of initial costs, but later it would go down. But still, £3,750 was still a lot when you consider at the time. There were blogs available on Journal Space and Blogger, which were available for free. Okay, I think Journal Space still existed at the time, I think, but I'm not sure. But I know Blogger did, and there must have been other blogs as well, right? But nonetheless, so that's that. Okay, now as I said, fast forward many years, and here we have the recent story, which I'm sure everybody's aware of worldwide, about Twitter permanently suspends, i.e. bans, Trump's account. It seems that not only did they ban his personal blog, but they banned him from writing on the President of the United States blog, and I think another blog to do with the Republicans, or something like that. This is absolutely shocking. If this happened in some other countries, to put it bluntly, the heads of those companies would have their heads chopped off, literally. Could you imagine them doing something like this in Saudi Arabia or somewhere else? They would be probably tried with treason and executed publicly, probably even on television. I don't know, right? To show that how dare they censor the world, their leader. But in America, it seems that America doesn't like freedom of speech anymore. They've been going more and more woke and prohibiting free speech over the last few years. It seems they're desperate to take a side. And if people express views on their platform that they just don't like, they start to ban people. And it's shown that even if you are the President of America, you're not immune from this garbage. Now, if it contains this information contains things like the private details of somebody that person didn't want being revealed, like if, for example, Donald Trump had revealed, I don't know, the home phone number of a relative nobody'd ever heard of Joe Biden's, I could understand them getting rid of that tweet. If it was, something that was very personal to a rival member that had nothing to do with politics, and it was to do with a member of their family who was nothing to do with politics at all, then again I might understand something like that. But no, this is just banning him because they don't like his opinions. They don't like his politics. And they just don't seem to like him. And even if they do say he incited violence, all he really did was said that he didn't agree with the election result and state his reasons for it. I've not ever seen any post by Donald Trump where it says, I want you to go somewhere and kill people. I never saw it. But even then, even if he did, you could argue maybe it's freedom of speech. You may not like it, but you could argue it's freedom of speech. And it does enter lots of debates about this. It also raises questions of, are social media platforms editors or not? Because in the past, for example in Britain, social media platforms have argued that they're not responsible for the content, but they haven't got the time to vet the content. And that unless it can be proven that some content violates the law of the land, they have no right to remove it. Okay. Here, a British politician discusses it. And he says that Twitter's Trump ban could lead to regulation rethink, says Hancock. And Matt Hancock, who's a British politician, said the move showed Twitter taking editorial decisions and by implication accepting that social media companies are not just platforms. Okay. In the past, many of these companies have claimed they're no different to a telephone company, where a telephone company can't realistically regulate what people say on the phone. They cannot listen to every single phone conversation. And they've claimed, and social media companies have claimed, that they haven't got the time to vet every single tweet or post, and unless it's something like extreme pornography, like, I don't know, a real snuff porn movie or something like that, i.e. where somebody really gets killed for real while having sex, something extra, or it's a real rape, real rape. I don't mean like a drama version, but even a real one, clip or something, or, child pornography or something like that, then usually you would expect them not to get involved. And he said, as a former culture secretary, Hancock said this raised significant questions about how social media companies are regulated. They accepted this was not part of his current portfolio as health secretary. And so even politicians are worried about this, saying, well, on the one hand, we gave you special license because you argued that you weren't responsible for whatever people post. But if you're going to suddenly start deciding what you will and will not accept, that suddenly makes you an editor. And then that can make, issues regarding balance and how balanced these companies are, and should the government intervene and say, well, I'm sorry, you must be more independent than this, and you must allow a variety of views, not just specific views, or saying if you're only going to allow specific views, you should make this very clear on your homepage that you, I'm guessing, and I've not said this, but I'm guessing they might say things like this. You should make it more obvious about the fact that you only support certain kinds of views, and things like that. And so now even politicians are worried about it. Okay, but it seems that even if you're a social media company in America that truly values freedom of speech, that really sets up your own company where you truly try to encourage true freedom of speech, even that's not good enough, because other companies will shut you down because your company, wants freedom of speech. No, I'm not joking. Parler, for example, was one such social media platform. They basically did what Twitter and Facebook did, but they said they were not going to ban anybody for providing controversial content. They said they would ban things like pornography and things like that, but if it was just opinions, freedom of speech, personally held views, no matter how abhorrent people might find those personal views, they would allow it, and they would publish it, and would let anybody state whatever opinion they wanted. However, other companies weren't happy about the fact that there was a company in America that was truly fighting against the system and truly trying to uphold true freedom of speech. And so other companies like Apple, Google and Amazon, in fact those specific companies actually, decided to shut them down. They couldn't bear the thought of a blogging company existing that allowed people to speak their mind and say what they truly really feel, even though to my knowledge Apple, Google and Amazon do not have their own blogging sites, to my knowledge. I'm not sure about Google, if Google have been involved in so many things right over the years, and I know there's something called Google Hangouts, okay, but I do not think Google is famous for blogging in any way, right? Or blogging sites. So even though they were not responsible for they could, Google, Amazon and Apple could easily have said Parler has nothing to do with us, they're an independent company and they can post whatever they like. They decided to intervene because they could not bear the thought of a company existing in America which actually had the guts to let people speak their mind. However, one country isn't happy with this, and they want to fight back. That country, believe it or not, is Poland. Now, if people had told you in the past that an Eastern European country like Poland would be the ones fighting for freedom of speech in America, and that America would be the country banning freedom of speech, people would have laughed their heads off, as Eastern Europe was generally associated with zero free speech and you being locked up if you said something the government didn't like. And America was seen as a country of freedom of speech where anybody could say anything they liked. But Poland is fighting back. And Poland's government has proposed a new law, it says, to stop social media platforms, and it doesn't say it, but I'm telling you, like Twitter and Facebook, deleting content or banning users who do not break Polish laws. That means that they intend to bring out a law that says if anybody in Poland writes anything on Twitter, on companies like Facebook or Twitter, which is perfectly legal within Poland, and they remove that tweet, then that will be an offence under Polish law. And they said the proposed bill would see social networks fined up to 50 million zloty, I'm sorry I can't pronounce it, which is approximately $13 million for failing to restore deleted posts or accounts. And it said The Justice Minister announced the Freedom of Speech Protection Bill on Friday, and would have been this particular news article was 2 days old. Okay, so it would have been last Friday. The law would also establish a Freedom of Speech Council. The council would be able to order social networks such as Facebook or Twitter to restore deleted content or unblock a user's account following a review. Social media users in Poland who have been blocked or had content deleted will be able to complain directly to the platform, which would have to respond within 24 hours. If a media company refused to comply with an order, the council will be able to issue a fine of, and I've just mentioned it was. It says that the Prime Minister leads a hard-right junior coalition partner in the Polish government. So, this is the Justice Minister. So it's not the Prime Minister; it's the Justice Minister. This person. But the point is, they intend to do this. Okay, but because they are fed up with the wokeness of social media companies, and they're fed up with people being banned for saying things that they're legally allowed to say, because these companies just don't happen to like their personal point of view. So there you go. It could one day happen that Poland becomes the bastion of freedom of speech, and America is becoming more and more the country that likes to ban freedom of speech. Thanks for watching, guys. My personal view, America's got this totally wrong on freedom of speech, and Poland's got it 100% right. It is absolutely shocking that America is banning Donald Trump just for stating views they don't like. And it is shocking that it takes a country like Poland to have to stand up to them and make these companies allow people to state their own personal opinions. I understand they're private companies. I understand they're businesses. But these companies have basically said, we're not editors. We're just allowing people to state their own opinions. But they have too much power, and they are effectively banning people. They are trying to corrupt the public. And if they had been open from the outset and said, we're just a left-wing blogging company which only allows left-wing views or whatever, or liberal views on our platform, that would be a different matter. But they gave people the impression that they were an independent company that would allow freedom of speech, that would allow people to write anything that wasn't illegal. But that is no longer the case. The irony is that they are companies which are promoting the views of the liberals, even though by doing so and banning people who have views that aren't in their view liberal, even though that ironically makes them non-liberal. So there you go. That's my personal view on this. America, you need to get back to allowing freedom of speech again. And Twitter and Facebook, I think you've completely, and Amazon, I think you've completely lost the plot. If you don't want to set up your own blogging sites which allow freedom of speech, Amazon, Google and Apple, well then you should let other people do it and let the public decide. If they don't like that platform, if they don't like that freedom of speech platform, they can just simply ignore it. But banning it is, in my view, going too far. To my knowledge, they were just controversial opinions stated on a site that did not consist of any pornography. It did not consist, to my knowledge, of anything where, that bad, and I never had the chance to see it. I wanted to, I never got the chance before it was closed down, but that is my understanding of the content, and it's only words, right? So, please, America, you've always claimed you were for freedom of speech in the First Amendment, which allows freedom of speech. Get back to applying it. Thanks for watching, guys.